Today's episode of the Faculty Factory podcast features a recording from a recent lecture led by Faculty Factory podcast host, Dr. Kimberly Skarupski. This lecture has been edited and repurposed to provide a friendly podcast listening experience.
And so to seed our conversation, I love this quote by Ellen Goodman, a longtime Washington Post columnist. She ended her career with this often quoted statement: "There's a trick to the graceful exit. It begins with the vision to recognize when a job, a life stage, or a relationship is over and let it go. It means leaving what's over without denying its validity or its past importance to our lives. It involves a sense of future, a belief that every exit line is an entry, that we are moving up rather than out." So regardless where you are in your career stage right now, regardless of where you are in your age or stage or family situation, and I do want to begin normalizing these conversations and not having it be so taboo that people are afraid of. That's not for me. Everything's for us because we'll be there soon enough. So let's talk about identity. Think about when you go to a party or you're at a housewarming or some event in the community or at a restaurant. How do we introduce ourselves? People say, "What's your name and where do you work?" And it's inevitable that we define ourselves by what we do. And that's kind of part of our challenge when we think about a next chapter or the next stages in our lives. Our professional identity is so much of our master or our primary status. We feel like that's mostly who we are. The big label is our professional identity. I'm a professor. I'm a physician. I'm a planner. I am a librarian. I'm a pharmacotoxicologist. Whatever we are, that role is all of who we are, but it's not. We are so many other things. We have the various social dimensions and personal dimensions. We have the family member, we're parents, we're partners, we're pickleball players, we're dancers, we're artists. We have so many other dimensions. And yet, when we're still in the job, that's the primary designation we have. So it's tough to think about, well, what will I be after this? This is all I know. And the important reflection here is that what we do does not define who we are. And yet in America, anyway, in the US, that's a big thing of always what do you do? And other countries and different cultures find that a little bit crass. Sometimes they think that's not, I didn't ask you what you do. Who are you? Tell me who you are, what kind of person you are. And so that can be a challenge for us because we identify so strongly with our jobs. We're human beings, not human doings, and yet we tend to be in this hustle grind culture of doing, which defines who we are. But when we think about who we are lottery winners, if you think about it in one way. We are very privileged, but what got you here won't necessarily get you there. And that's the challenge in academia or this space. Again, we are trained so deeply and have such a growth mindset around how to advance in our careers, how to generate scholarships, how to win the grants, how to get the papers, how to mentor junior folks, how to navigate a career ladder. But we really aren't taught the socio-emotional aspects of managing relationships and understanding ourselves and understanding the organizational savvy that it requires to be a leader. So, or even finances, some hardcore things like finances and bureaucracy. We don't learn that. So these opportunities are times for us to reflect on these things that we're not taught. So when we talk about this whole book thing of what got you here won't get you there, well, what is here and what is there? Who is there? Who, what, where, when, why, and how? All the things. Is there such a thing? Should I retire or not? What does that look like for me? Should I jump? Should I go there? I'm used to only this. I can hardly imagine my life not doing this. It can be really daunting if you don't have a sense of what next thing is. In fact, the impala, this member of the antelope family, is able to jump 10 feet high and 30 feet in length. Standing still, 10 foot high, that's a pretty good vertical leap, and 30 feet in length. However, in a zoo, they're kept in place by a wall that is merely 3 feet tall. And why? How can that happen? How can that be? Because they will never jump unless they can see where they will land. So if that 3-foot high wall is, they can't see over it, so they're not going to jump. It made me think, oh my gosh, isn't that true for so many of us who are in our 50s, 60s, late 40s, thinking, I can't imagine anything after this because I can't see it. I don't know what it is. So it's tough to jump and grab onto something else when you're still hanging onto this, or you don't know. It's like a cliff or an abyss. I don't want to let go of this because I'm going to fall into nothingness or a big void. It's scary. So the best way for us to, go forward is by cutting a little peephole in that wall and taking a look. And then that Impala would be more, I think, courageous to know that they can take a leap. I like this other quote in this other book that's very important, The New Directions for Higher Education on Reinventing Academic Retirement. Baldwin is the editor, and he talks about, quoting Friedman, he calls for both rites of passage as well as routes of passage. And in my research in medical schools across the country, we don't have these routes. When I did some research, we found that very few schools had policies or procedures or programs around late career advancement and how to retire. It's very few and far between. They'll have courses on how to deal with Medicare, how to have the finance people come and talk to you about your financial portfolio. But other than that, it's very sparse of figuring out what are some paths. We know what paths are for promotion. Here's a path for promotion. Here's one clinical research educator. We spend a lot of time carving out and trying to smooth paths for promotion, but we really don't talk about after that. We figure you'll figure it out on your own. So we're trying to, through this series, illuminate some pathways to getting us there. And I mentioned some of this research. When I surveyed, our whole team surveyed around the country leaders of U.S. medical schools, and of those who responded, 138 medical school faculty and deans, less than half reported that their institutions had a policy, less than half. And then the 5 most common retirement-related resources were honorific appointments, benefits for retirees, phased retirement, retirement counseling, and planning. More than half said that when we asked them, why do you think your faculty members might be interested in retiring, they talked about burnout, decreased grant funding, and changes in productivity requirements. So pressures, demands to produce more, RBU generation. And interestingly, when on the peer publication of that, when I actually surveyed the faculty themselves who were 55 and older, and I asked them what might be the reasons why you would consider retirement, they said 3 completely different things. They said if they had phased retirement or part-time options would help them think about it. If there were changes in institutional leadership, good or bad changes, and the presence of a successor. When they would retire, they thought they would be interested in ongoing work, in teaching or education and research scholarship, and that they wanted health insurance, email, and part-time teaching opportunities. So there was definitely a disconnect between the deans and the leaders of these schools, what they thought their faculty were thinking about and what was offered, and then with the faculty themselves. So that kind of highlighted some gaps. In this book, The Care of the Elderly, I wrote a chapter on retirement where we talk about the age labels chronology no longer matters. When I studied sociology, we learned about there's a young old, the old, and the oldest old, young old, middle old, oldest old. But because we are healthier and more active and more fit and more disposable income, these age categories really don't matter anymore. A lot of faculty in academia are a lot older than ever before. Just like the population is aging, we have a lot of older faculty. My gosh, I want to say 36% of faculty in academic medical schools are age 50 and older. A quarter are 60 and older. So just like the world, we're getting older and we're able to continue in academia. But what we're also noticing is that some people are saying, I don't want to retire. Other people count the days till they can retire. And other people say, I can't afford to retire. It's very personal. But what we do know is there's rarely an abrupt stop. Rarely do people say, I'm going to stop, and then they don't return. There's definitely a return. So this retirement disrupted, this Merrill Lynch study showed that there's absolutely a pre-retirement stage, a career intermission stage, a re-engagement, and then a leisure stage. So there's this thinking about it, pre-contemplation, if you will, contemplation, taking a little break, and then some aspect of a re-engagement. So that's very normal these days to not just do cold turkey, stop and go sit on a beach somewhere or golf or knit. It's kind of a stopping and then a re-engaging via consultant work, part-time status, any kind of side gigs like that, because it's still, our lifeblood of what we do. So we like to think about what are the myths that we have around aging. And again, I'm 60. So in my generation, I still recall the retirement folks who would get the watch and the rocking chair, and they'd be like, I'm just going to golf. I can't wait to retire and get out of this place. And I'm going to sit and watch my stories all day. My grandma's, I can't wait to retire. I'm going to watch my stories. It was back when they had soap operas. Those are her stories. But that's no longer the case. And this is where we talk about stereotypes and prejudice and discrimination. The ageism, how we think, how do we think about older people? Like when I talked about these series, a lot of faculty said, oh, I'm not old enough to do that. So the myth, the stereotype of those old people, that's not for me, rather than thinking, but blink your eyes, you're going to be where we are. This is, this is definitely happening faster than you think. How we feel, prejudice, how we feel toward older age, and then discrimination, how we might act ageist toward older adults. We don't want to be prejudiced toward our own selves. That's part of this normalizing conversations. We have to make sure that when we think of identity, don't discount or be prejudiced or discriminating toward your people like you or yourself. Because in fact, there's a lot of peak performing in this career stage. Now, we're very generative and generating a lot of work and wisdom and contributions feeding back. And so we have to adjust our lens and reframe how we think about this stage of life. Now, this research talks about factors that influence psychological well-being in retirement. And there are a number of categories, individual attributes like our status, our health status, our health decline, pre-retirement job-related factors like the stress of the work, the job demands, all those job dissatisfaction, unemployment before retirement, family-related factors, transitional factors, and post-retirement activities. So there are a number of factors that are beneficial. The more stable your finances are, your health, married, good marriage, the voluntariness of retiring, not being forced to retire, planning it, and other incentives are strongly associated with psychological well-being in retirement. That said, that all these factors, we in academia are in good position to ensure well-being in retirement due to a lot of our, again, privileges of being in this space. I'm going to kind of round out this conversation with this chapter that I wrote, that there are other contextual factors that I'm also been doing some research in. People our age or 50s and older are also kind of a sandwich generation. Some of us are caring not only for our children and grandchildren, but we're caring for spouses and partners and moms and dads and aunts and grandmas and uncles. And because academia draws people from around the world, we don't live in a society anymore where all those family members are around the corner from us or a 5-minute car ride. Many of our faculty members, and I hold a monthly virtual caregiving session for faculty members, their moms and dads, they're flying to Germany every 2 weeks or flying out to California or flying to the East Coast regularly because family members are dispersed. So that's a lot of job stress and pressures on people who are employed. 19% of the faculty from that study I showed you earlier, national study of faculty age 55 and older, almost a fifth of them said, yes, I'm currently providing care for a partner or a family member. So this is, as we know, caregiving can be a part-time to a full-time job. It's not a small amount proportion of faculty members. And when I surveyed our faculty in the Department of Medicine at Johns Hopkins, 36% of them responded to the survey that they were also providing care for a family member or loved one who has needs. So there are a lot of contextual things happening when we get older and in our professions that can lead to our decisions in the future. And then I want to finish up this segment on Who will I be? So back to identity. There is this end of history illusion, which I love back in 2013. Young people, middle-aged people, and older people all believed that they had changed a lot in the past, but they would change relatively little in the future. People, it seems, regard the present as a watershed moment at which they have finally become the person they will be for the rest of their lives. It's a really fascinating psychological concept that we think, oh, when I look back from where I was, oh, I've come so far, and now this is it, I'm done. I'm fully cooked, without realizing, oh my gosh, 25 years from now, 10 years from now, could you also be another new person? Yeah. So we can reinvent or invent the future selves. What future self do you envision? What does the future you look like? And we have the power to do that. And that's part of this, the beauty and the excitement of planning this. We have the power to change and to create a new, whatever life we want to build in the future. The challenge here for our identity is, who could you be? And I love this word delight. What delights you? When was the last time you heard or you thought, I feel utterly delighted in something? And is that something you could reflect back on when you were younger or in another life when you were playing violin or riding your bicycle or creating art? What delighted you then? And where are opportunities to be delighted now and for your future self? And what peaks or kind of dusty corners could we revisit? Some of us think, I kind of started that and stopped that, didn't kind of go circle back. Can we circle back or go deeper instead of going wider? Can we go deeper and find some elements of our aspects of our lives or gifts that we kind of put to the side and we can kind of dust off the shelf and bring that back to us? We are so focused on this career that oftentimes comes at the expense of other things like our health, our friends and our family, our partners, our personal growth. Very few of us take time to really think deeply about ourselves and our lives. We're so busy caring for everyone else that our stuff comes later. So that purpose helps to remind us that in age also, this is a well-known sociological, there's a U-shaped curve of life satisfaction, that we're really happy in our teens because we're clueless, we don't know anything. And then there's a dip in the mid-career malaise. There's a dip usually because it's attributed to the pressures of our jobs and our kids and our marriages. And then it goes up. Life satisfaction starts going up around age 60. So that's another thing to think of, that this is the world, the proverbial is the oyster. It is in fact the case that evidence shows that people report more happiness and satisfaction in older age. So Chip Conley is another well-respected guy in this space and in coaching. And he talks about it being not a midlife crisis, but rather a midlife chrysalis, that we are ready to turn into a butterfly. And it's a whole rebirth opportunity. And that he suggests maybe we need a midwife for midlife, that we need people who can help us coach, or like a Sherpa. And he also talks about transitional intelligence, have IQ, EQ, emotional intelligence, and then we have this transitional intelligence quotient. How good are we, or how much better can we be at learning about transitions on a maybe more metaphysical level, and a meaning level, that it's not just transitions through institutions or career stages or degrees or promotion or titles or roles, but transitioning into being and purpose. So really cool stuff. And this is where we talk about mentoring and coaching. Peer mentors. We've had over our life, getting career professional coaching to help us gain clarity around our goals and what we want and our vision for ourselves. Another way of thinking, a new frame or lens, is what do I want from life versus what is life asking of me? So there's this idea of what do I want from life, but rather what is it asking of me? Where am I needed? Where does my community need me? Where does my family, my friends, my colleagues, where is there a gap or a need? So that is the idea of thinking about purpose. Again, it's not about you. It's not only what do I want to get from life, but what is life asking of me? Another way of thinking about this. And how do you think about what is where do you derive purpose and meaning? It's rooted in our values, what we deem as important, those religious, familial, cultural, temperament, friends, health, all those things that make up who we are and what we want in our life. It's the frame or the lens through which we determine what do I want or what's life asking of me, my values. And if you're living a life that's misaligned with your values, that's no good. So that's where we have a lot of the burnout literature that Tate Chenefeld has shown that if you're not spending about 20% of your week engaged in things that fill your heart with joy, that's where you burn out because you're working against that which is most important to you. So if your top values are faith, family, friends, fitness, harmony, relationships, but you're in a job where you're not doing or have time to do any of that, that will, of course, deplete your battery and your energy and will lead to having a life that has no purpose or meaning. And so many of us, in academia, when you're being held to these incredibly difficult bars of generating revenue and getting papers and getting grants and getting contracts and getting projects and just being, stressed and pulled and pressed, we are oftentimes end up feeling like we don't have anything left in us. To me, it's a philosophical question that institutions, countries, families, departments, divisions, their cultures, that's just a way of living. We can define that at each little micro structure, micro culture. We can determine that. But when it comes down to it, what keeps the lights on is money. So when you end up looking at everything on a spreadsheet and by dollar value, that will tell you, show me, where you spend your time, and that will tell me what you value. But we can set examples of like, no, I'm going to my kid's soccer game, or no, my grandkid is, having a party and I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be online. So we can set examples of other people saying, no, where'd she go? She went and took a walk. What do you mean took a walk? She'd take a walk on the harbor. Oh, we can do that? Yes, we can walk. Yes, we can go and take a fitness class in the middle of the day. Yes, we can go, take time off, expect it to be taken holiday time and not checking emails. So we can do things, but it's onion, like an onion, multi-layered. Companies will choose what kind of culture they want to create to attract the best people, retain the best people, grow and develop the best leaders. They make those decisions. And in academia, we're more and more finding ourselves, in academic medicine, certainly, there's margins are so slim. We don't have a lot of resources that we can have massage and shoulder, and everybody has concierge care to pick up our dry cleaning and do that kind of stuff. And a lot of it could be like having good food in the cafeteria that doesn't stop serving at 3:00. Then people who are here working late can eat healthy food and feel safe and park and be convenient. So there's a lot there. There are values exercises where you can really take some time to think, well, what are my values? This is a weirdo thing. What is she talking about values? I value everything. No, there are certain things that are really fundamental to who you are, who we are, that are core values. So if you can dig deep and think about what are those core values, they may not be the ones that you had when we were younger. They change because the nature of our lives change. Our kids grow up and life happens. And what used to be important to us maybe is no longer important to us. So a deep dive into what is important to me? What are my values? What are my top 5 values? Am I living a life that's aligned with those? If someone were to look at my calendar and like a museum curator, thoughtfully and carefully putting relics or pieces of art in a museum, do we carefully and thoughtfully put things in our calendar? Probably not, unless that's put on our calendars for us. And a curator would say, oh my goodness, what's all that there for? But to what degree and what element can we curate our lives to put things in there that delight us, that serve and are aligned with our values, that make us in that rhythm where we feel like, oh, I'm doing what I was meant to do. And this whole thing, this kind of brings us to looking at what we did value in the past and what we do value going forward, because time changes us and we do grow, we do mature, we do learn and change. So how do we find purpose and passion through these values, and how can we be intentional going forward in that reflection? So again, the lens of the frame is, where do we want to be? Can we find some way to balance some of these imbalances? pursue new intellectual interests, giving back, strengthening social connections, traveling more, pursuing some hobbies, paying attention to our health. Are we willing to commit to change? Because we talk about, I need to do more, I need to exfoliate, I need to drink more, water, and eat more vitamins, I need to healthy, I need to do more. But we rarely talk about, what can I do less of? What can I give up? What can I stop doing? I'm going to stop doing something instead of always thinking I have to add more stuff to do. And that requires change. And it's courageous for us to go, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or I'm going to do this from now on. So this whole thing about purpose involves us being willing to change or recalibrate or pivot what we're doing now. Mitch Anthony in the new Retire Mentality, a good book, talks about most of us at this stage, advanced career, want the freedom to pursue our own goals and interests. We want autonomy to call our own shots. It's also about transitioning from productivity, human doings, to purpose. I have more flexibility or more courage perhaps to say no to things because I'm already been promoted or I'm already whatever. I don't need to do that stuff anymore. I don't need to impress you. I don't need to earn someone's, get validation from someone else thinking highly. It's not about that. I don't care anymore. So the idea of changing, I like this quote as well. If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. And so I think that's a challenge for me because change is hard. Learning new stuff can be hard, but irrelevance not to others, but maybe relevant to my relationships, where I am in my community. What purpose do I have? Thinking about, can I change? Can I pivot? Can I recalibrate? And this time of our lives, autopilot can be good. Being in a groove is good. This is familiar to me. I've been here before. I know how to do this. But then how many days, weeks, months, years of doing this, doing it well, I'm in a groove. Are you like, really? Is this it? I do this for another 40 years? Another 50 years? This can be where we can, again, reflect back on, I'm not excited about this anymore. Checkbox, I've done this. I'm ready for change. I'm ready for new. This does not delight me any longer. If you focus on your values, live your life with purpose and passion, that leads to flow, this flow channel right in the middle, that sweet spot of optimal experiences. If we find ourselves being bored or anxious, how can we find that new, repivot, recalibrate to get in that middle channel there of designing optimal experiences? When our computer is fuzzy, futzy, tired, slow, or acting strangely, what do? All the re's. We reboot, refresh, redo, recharge, renew, replenish, renegotiate, re-energize, rejuvenate, restore, repurpose. When a business gets a new owner or wants to reach a new or different audience, what does a business do? Rebrand, reinvent, refocus, reimagine, reframe, reevaluate, re-envision, retool, restructure, re-strategize, revisit. What are the re's in me? Is it time for me? What excites me about doing a reboot in my life or envisioning a future that is different from what my past has been? It's exciting to think about, if I warm start, boot, or unplug and replug, what's going to happen? How can I do new? How can I find a new purpose? Because after all, we are the CEO of us. You're the CEO of you. Nobody cares more about your organization than you. You're the CEO of your life. I envisioned just being a professor. I wanted to be a professor and teach. And it was only until an NIH bottomed out in 2006, and my boss then said, if you're not 100% covered by grants, we're going to cut your salary in half. And it was like most of us in the Center for Research, Gerontology. So we're all like, oh boy, here we go. Because I was just writing grants. I was submitting R01s every cycle, writing papers like crazy, and teaching. That's all I was doing. And I envisioned that was my life. I'm a professor. That's what I do. I do research. It's all about me, my papers, my research, my classes. And then the bottom dropped out, and my salary was going to be cut in half until 2 weeks before the fiscal year ended. My boss came to me and said, hey, my buddy in gastroenterology has a retention package because he was going to leave. And he wants to build a research mentoring program. And they said that if he stays, they'll support that. he needs someone to build that for him. And I think you'd be great at that. I'm like, research mentoring program. How do I know about that? He said, you'll figure it out. And I sit here now in front of you as an provost, associate, whatever I am, associate vice provost of something. And before that, I was at Hopkins as a dean. Are you kidding me? Only because I realized then my purpose was to serve others. I was sitting in an office for years in my own little world doing my classroom, my teaching, my research, my papers, my data analysis, my grant writing, and I was not getting R1s. And it was only until this happened that I fell backwards into building a research mentoring program that opened up a whole new world for me. And the only dean I'd ever heard of was in a movie called Animal House, and the dean was a jerk. Yeah. Like I thought deans were the evil. So I had no idea the field of faculty development existed. I had never in my wildest dreams would I ever envision being at a level like this, but it was because my purpose was illuminated for me. So I think that's another way of thinking, that when you turn the gaze outward and readjust your lens, that's when you realize, oh, I was given a gift to help others. If I'm not getting my own R1s, it's because I'm really good at helping other people get theirs.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.